She thought she was meeting a struggling single dad with two restless kids, but when the truth of who he really was came crashing down, Amelia had to ask herself, was it all a lie or the love she'd been waiting for?
Hello, if you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and tap the notification bell. Type in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as touching as this one, or maybe even crazier. And you don't want to miss it. Now let's begin.
The alarm on Adrian Leclerc's phone buzzed at 5:30 a.m., but he'd already been awake for an hour. Sleep rarely came easily anymore. He sat at the edge of his bed, staring at a framed photograph of his late wife, the woman who had made his fortune feel like home, who'd laughed with him in the kitchen barefoot, who'd left him alone with two children and heart that no scalpel could ever repair. From down the hall of his Boston home came the sound of his twins bickering, voices overlapping, high-pitched and relentless. Adrian rubbed his temples. He could silence a room of surgeons with one look, but he couldn't make his children stop arguing over who got the last chocolate chip waffle. When he finally stepped into the kitchen, Julian sat with sticky fingers, Arya pouting across from him, arms folded. "You're supposed to share," Adrian said, sliding the last bite of waffle onto Arya's plate. "Not fair," Julian huffed. "Life isn't fair," Adrian muttered, more to himself than to his son. Vincent Moreau, his best friend and business partner, strolled in uninvited, tie loosened, expression amused. "You look like a man in desperate need of a distraction." Adrian shot him a look. "I need an operating room, not a distraction." Vincent smirked. "What you need is a woman who doesn't care about your last name, which is why I signed you up for a blind date." Adrian laughed bitterly. "And you think that'll fix everything?" "Not fix," Vincent said, leaning closer, "but maybe remind you you're alive." Adrian wanted to scoff, but Arya's sudden giggle caught him off guard. Her big eyes studied him, curious. "Daddy, will she like us?" Adrian blinked. He hadn't even agreed yet, but his daughter's question lodged deep. On the other side of the city of Boston, Amelia Navarro was rinsing paint off her hands in the preschool sink. Her classroom smelled of glue sticks and apple juice, glitter still clinging stubbornly to the floor. She loved her job, but love didn't pay rent. She needed something more. "You're working yourself into the ground," her sister Daniela said, appearing in the doorway with a knowing smirk. "When was the last time you wore lipstick?" "Teaching phonics doesn't require lipstick," Amelia muttered. Daniela arched an eyebrow. "But blind dates do." Amelia froze. "You didn't." "I did. He's a single dad. Normal. You'll like him." Daniela grinned. "You're welcome." Amelia shook her head. "Normal doesn't exist." Her voice cracked a little as she wiped her hands on a paper towel. But still, some part of her wondered if maybe, just maybe, she could risk meeting someone who didn't already know how to break her. The diner glowed under a buzzing neon sign, the scent of grilled onions and coffee drifting through the crisp Boston air. Adrian parked Vincent's beat-up sedan, his twins bouncing in the back seat. Arya clutched her unicorn. Julian tugged at his shoelaces. "Remember, tonight I'm just Dad, nothing else." Arya tilted her head. "But you're always just Dad." Her words pierced deeper than she knew. Inside the diner, Amelia walked toward the hostess, smoothing her simple dress. She spotted him, the man with kind but tired eyes, two restless kids at his side. And before either of them said a word, both knew their lives were about to change. If you were Amelia, and your blind date showed up with his kids, would that make you walk away, or would it make you curious? Tell me in the comments below. The diner was crowded, filled with the low hum of conversations, clinking silverware, and the sizzling of bacon from the open kitchen. Waitresses in red aprons darted between booths, balancing plates of pancakes and coffee pots that never seemed to empty. Amelia slid into the booth across from Adrian, her eyes quickly flicking to the twins pressed against his sides. Arya waved shyly, clutching her unicorn to her chest, while Julian offered a bold grin, as if daring her to keep up with him. Adrian cleared his throat. "I didn't think it was fair to hide them from you. They're part of me." It wasn't the opening line Amelia expected. No small talk, no empty charm, just honesty, at least the kind of honesty she could see. Her lips curved faintly. Most men wait until the third date before introducing the chaos. Julian's grin widened. We're not chaos, we're special agents. Arya giggled and leaned into her father. Daddy said this was a mission. Adrian rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. That may have slipped out. Amelia's laughter startled her. It had been so long since she'd laughed like that, full, unguarded, surprising even herself. The waitress arrived, dropping menus. Adrian passed them to the twins, who immediately circled everything smothered in whipped cream. He glanced at Amelia. You'll have to forgive their taste. Subtlety isn't their strong suit. Neither is patience, Julian piped up. Daddy says we have too much energy. Too much? Amelia teased. I'd say just enough. Keeps life interesting. Adrian watched her as she said it. She didn't recoil from the twins, didn't look inconvenienced. She leaned in, engaging with them naturally, as though children weren't a burden, but a gift. Something inside him shifted, so subtle he almost didn't notice, the faint stir of hope. As the meal went on, conversation tumbled between spilled sodas, Arya's unicorn needing a seat of its own, and Julian's passionate debate about superheroes. Adrian should have been mortified, but instead he found himself smiling more than he had in months. When Amelia excused herself to the restroom, Vincent's warning rang in his head. The lie will backfire. Adrian stared at the twins, who were arguing over syrup now. He should tell her the truth, that he wasn't just some average dad in thrift clothes, that outside this diner he lived a life of privilege and expectation. But then Amelia returned, and something happened that silenced all reason. Arya tugged on Amelia's sleeve. Miss Amelia, do you think Daddy's a good man? The table stilled. Adrian's pulse roared in his ears. Amelia knelt so she was eye level with Arya, her expression softening. Yes, she whispered. I think your daddy's a very good man. Adrian swallowed hard, heat burning his throat. He wasn't used to words piercing him, not like this. 3 years of professional praise, of headlines about his surgeries and philanthropic empire, had left him untouched. But one sentence, quiet, sincere, directed not at him but at his daughter, undid him. Julian squinted at her suspiciously. Even when he makes us eat broccoli? Especially then, Amelia teased. They laughed, and for a moment, the booth felt like a family table. Not strangers meeting for the first time. Not a man lying about who he was. Just something real. When dessert came, Arya slid her bowl toward Amelia. Want to share? Amelia hesitated, then scooped a spoonful. Adrian caught the way she smiled at his daughter, patient and warm, and something dangerous swelled inside him, a longing he had buried, a desire for home that stretched beyond walls of glass and steel. Later, as the twins begged for one more milkshake, Adrian leaned across the table. His voice was low, almost unsteady. They don't usually take to people this fast. Amelia stirred her coffee, avoiding his gaze. Maybe they just needed someone to see them. The words struck deeper than she knew. For years, Adrian had been seen as many things: genius, billionaire, widower, but never simply as a father, never simply as a man. And now, across a sticky diner booth, Amelia Navarro had managed to do it without even trying. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't sure whether to feel terrified or alive.
The glow of the diner lingered in Adrian's mind long after he tucked the twins into bed that night. Arya had fallen asleep clutching her unicorn. Julian mumbled about superheroes even in his dreams. Adrian lingered in the doorway of their shared bedroom, watching their chests rise and fall. For a fleeting second, he imagined what it would be like if Amelia were here, reading them bedtime stories, humming lullabies, filling the silence that his late wife had left behind. But imagination was dangerous, and lies even more so. He pulled the door shut softly, but the weight in his chest grew heavier, not lighter. The next morning, Vincent was already in his office when Adrian walked in. The man's tie was crooked, his hair disheveled, but his eyes were sharp. "You're glowing," Vincent said flatly. "That means trouble." Adrian shot him a look. "I'm not glowing." "You are," Vincent pressed, leaning back in his chair. "How did the blind date go?" Adrian hesitated, recalling Amelia's whispered words to Arya. "Your daddy's a good man." His throat tightened. "It went, better than expected." Vincent narrowed his eyes. So you're telling me you let a woman who thinks you're broke and ordinary into your kids' lives? Adrian, what happens when she finds out you're not just some widowed dad in flannel shirts? What happens when she realizes you're worth billions? Adrian didn't answer. He knew the answer. It would hurt. Vincent's voice softened. You've built a reputation on truth and skill. Don't ruin your personal life on a lie. But Adrian wasn't ready to let go, not yet. He needed one more day, one more chance to be seen as just a man. Meanwhile, across Boston, Amelia sat at her sister's kitchen table, stirring her tea without drinking it. Daniela arched an eyebrow. So? She asked. Was he a creep? Did he have 3 heads? Tell me everything. Amelia exhaled slowly. He wasn't what I expected. That's either really good or really bad. Amelia smiled faintly. He brought his kids. Daniela blinked. On a first date? That's bold. I thought so too, but Amelia hesitated, remembering Arya's shy smile, Julian's wild energy, and Adrian's steady hands guiding them both. But it felt real, like he wasn't trying to impress me. Daniela studied her. Or maybe that's his trick. Some men hide behind kids to look good. Don't forget Carlos M. People can pretend for a long time. Amelia's stomach twisted. Daniela was right about one thing. People could pretend. But when she remembered the way Adrian's eyes softened when Arya offered her dessert, or the way he leaned forward when she spoke, as if nothing else in the room mattered, it didn't feel like pretending. Still, something gnawed at her. He carried himself with a quiet confidence, even in a thrift store shirt. His words were measured, polished. His knowledge about medicine, about wine, about the world, it didn't match the beat-up sedan he drove, or the worn jacket on his shoulders. She stirred her tea faster. Too good to be true. That was the phrase Daniela had drilled into her head, and Amelia was starting to believe it. Days passed. Adrian and Amelia texted casually, mostly about the twins, Arya's artwork, Julian's antics. He sent photos of them eating messy spaghetti. She replied with stories from her preschool classroom. But each message Adrian sent carried a hidden weight. He was weaving deeper into her life while building walls around his truth. One evening, he almost confessed. His thumbs hovered over the phone screen. There's something I need to tell you. But before he could send it, Julian bounded into the room with a Lego creation, and Arya begged for a bedtime story. Adrian deleted the message. Not tonight. The second time they met, Amelia noticed more. They went for ice cream after school. The twins ran ahead, laughing, while Adrian walked beside her, hands in his pockets. He looked comfortable in thrift clothes, but there was something in the way he spoke, references to cities abroad, a familiarity with art that didn't add up. At one point, the cashier handed him the change, and Adrian automatically said, "Merci." Amelia tilted her head. French? He blinked. Habit. Spent some time abroad. Studying medicine? His lips tightened. Something like that. Suspicion stirred again. Amelia didn't push, but she filed it away. Later, when Arya smeared ice cream on her dress, Adrian kneeled to clean it. His movements were precise, practiced, like a man used to steady hands and delicate tasks. You've done this before, Amelia teased lightly. Occupational hazard, Adrian replied. She frowned. What exactly do you do? There it was, the question he dreaded. He hesitated, eyes flicking to his children. I'm in medicine. Not glamorous, just enough to keep us steady. A half-truth, enough to quiet suspicion, not enough to satisfy it. Amelia studied him. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But the unease settled deeper. That night, Amelia lay awake replaying the evening. The way he avoided direct answers. The way his kids looked at him with devotion, yet a hint of loneliness. The way her own heart skipped when he smiled. She pressed her pillow tighter. She couldn't let herself fall for a man wrapped in mystery. Not again. The call came just after noon. Amelia was crouched beside a group of preschoolers, helping them glue paper leaves onto construction paper tree, when her phone buzzed. The caller ID read, Boston Elementary, Nurse's Office. Her stomach dropped. Miss Navarro? The voice on the other end said.
We have a Julien Leclerc here. He had a fall during recess. Nothing life-threatening, but we'd like you to stay with him until his father arrives. He seems very anxious." Emilia's pulse quickened. She looked at the clock, then at the tiny hands reaching for glue. "I'll be right there." By the time she reached the nurse's office, Julien was sitting on a cot, one knee scraped raw and wrapped in gauze. His usually cocky grin was gone, replaced by a trembling lip. "Miss Emilia!" he cried, launching into her arms the moment he saw her. She smoothed his hair, trying to steady his shaking shoulders. "Hey, you're okay. Just a scratch. Brave boys like you heal fast." The door burst open. Adrian rushed in, still in scrubs, the scent of antiseptic clinging to him. His face was pale, eyes wild until they landed on Julien. "Dad!" Julien clutched his hand. "It hurt!" Adrian sank to his knees beside the cot, examining the bandage with trembling fingers. His composure, the surgeon's precision, the billionaire's control, was gone. He was just a father terrified of losing his son. Emilia saw it in his eyes, raw and unguarded. "You should sit," she said softly. "He's fine, just shaken." Adrian looked up, meeting her gaze. His throat worked. Thank you for being here." For a moment, silence stretched. Only the faint hum of the nurse's computer filled the room. Then Aria appeared in the doorway, escorted by a staff member. She clutched her unicorn, eyes wide. "Is Julien okay?" Adrian gathered both twins against him, his arms a fortress. Emilia watched, heart tugging in directions she didn't want to admit. Later that evening, after the scare had settled, Adrian did something reckless. He showed up at Emilia's apartment with takeout bags dangling from his hands, the twins bouncing behind him. "You don't have to," Emilia started, opening the door, but Adrian shook his head. "They wouldn't stop talking about you," he admitted, his voice cracked, almost embarrassed. "And I didn't want to eat alone tonight." Her tiny apartment felt suddenly too small for them all. Piles of books, a chipped coffee table, toys scattered by the twins within minutes. But somehow the chaos filled the space with warmth. They ate on the floor, cartons spread out picnic style. Julien recounted his heroic survival of the terrible scrape, while Aria drew unicorns on napkins. At one point, Adrian leaned back against the couch, watching them. His shoulders lowered, his jaw unclenched. He looked at peace. Emilia caught it, the softness in his features, and felt something stir she hadn't felt in years. Safety. But then doubt crept in, whispering at the edges. Men always had masks, and Adrian's mask, whatever it was, still hadn't cracked. When the twins finally dozed off on her couch, Emilia draped a blanket over them. Adrian rose quietly, his height filling her small kitchen doorway. "Thank you," he said again, voice low. "You don't have to keep thanking me," she replied. "I do," he countered, his gaze steady. "I can't remember the last time someone cared about them without wanting something in return." The words cut Emilia in ways he couldn't know. She swallowed, biting back the truth about her own abandonment scars. Instead, she forced a smile. "They're good kids, easy to care about." For a moment, the air thickened between them. The faint scent of sesame noodles lingered, mingling with the soft sound of Aria's snores. Adrian looked like he might say something more, but then his phone buzzed. He stepped back, mask slipping back into place. "I should take them home." Emilia nodded, though her heart sank. She knew this wasn't just an ordinary man with twins. There was more he wasn't saying. And yet, when he carried Julien out, cradled carefully against his chest, she couldn't stop herself from thinking, what if he's the one person who won't leave? If someone you were falling for kept showing you glimpses of vulnerability, but you sensed they were hiding something big, would you keep giving them chances or walk away? Share your thoughts below.
The Saturday fundraiser buzzed with the sounds of children's laughter and the faint squeak of sneakers on polished gym floors. Posters of finger-painted rainbows decorated the walls. and the smell of popcorn mingled with hot dogs from the concession table. Emilia moved between parents and colleagues, clipboard in hand, corralling volunteers and keeping the chaos at bay. She didn't notice Adrian at first, until she heard Aria's excited squeal echo through the gym. "Daddy! Daddy, come see my booth!" Her heart stuttered. Adrian stood near the entrance, dressed simply again, plain jeans, button-down rolled at the sleeves. He looked out of place among the harried parents, yet strangely comfortable. His twins clung to him as if he were their anchor. Emilia smiled despite herself. "Didn't expect to see you volunteering." Adrian adjusted a box of donated books in his arms. "Didn't want to miss it. Besides, the twins insisted." Julian grinned, puffing his chest. "Daddy's strong. He carried 3 boxes by himself." Adrian chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. But Emilia caught it. The faint wince, as if the weight wasn't just from boxes, but from something deeper. Later, while Aria painted faces and Julian ran wild with balloons, Adrian and Emilia found themselves standing near the bleachers, watching the chaos. "You're good with them," she said softly. He didn't look at her. "I try." Something in his voice pulled her closer. "You're more than just trying. They adore you." His jaw tightened. Silence stretched. Finally, he spoke. "Their mother. She passed away 3 years ago. Complications after a surgery. I never—" His voice broke. He stopped, staring at the scuffed gym floor as though it could swallow the memories whole. Emilia's chest tightened. She wanted to reach for him, to bridge the distance. Instead, she whispered, "I'm sorry." He nodded once, a clipped movement, but when he finally looked at her, his eyes were raw, unguarded. "Since then, it's just been me and them. Every decision, every fear, every night." Emilia swallowed hard. She knew what it was to feel abandoned. Her father had walked out when she was 10, leaving her mother to juggle 2 jobs and her sister Daniela practically raising her. Trust had never come easy. "My father left us," she confessed, her voice shaking. "No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Since then, I've always waited for people to leave." Their eyes met, 2 wounds recognizing each other. But before the silence could deepen into something tender, a voice broke in. "Well, well, Emilia Navarro." She turned. At the edge of the bleachers stood Henry Caldwell, a hospital benefactor she'd met once before, a man polished, wealthy, and smug. He carried himself with the kind of arrogance that filled the room before he even spoke. "I didn't expect to see you here," Henry said, smiling thinly. His gaze slid to Adrian, dismissive. "And you brought company." Adrian's posture stiffened. Emilia quickly stepped in. "Henry, just volunteering today." Henry's smirk deepened. "Of course, always giving back. Admirable." His eyes flicked to Adrian's worn shirt, then to Emilia. "But you deserve more." Adrian's hand clenched at his side. Emilia bristled. Before she could retort, a teacher called her name from across the gym. "Excuse me," she muttered, leaving Adrian and Henry alone for a moment. Henry leaned closer to Adrian, his voice low but cutting. "She's too good for you, whoever you are. Men like you disappear. Men like me don't." Adrian's eyes burned with the weight of 100 things unsaid. But when Emilia returned, Henry had already slipped away, leaving a shadow behind him. That evening, as they packed up the fundraiser, Emilia noticed something. Adrian reached for a stack of papers, and his sleeve rode up. The watch gleamed beneath the gym lights, sleek, understated, but unmistakably expensive. She knew that brand. Daniela once worked for a luxury retailer and had shown her catalogs filled with watches that cost more than her yearly rent. Her breath hitched. "Nice watch," she said carefully. Adrian froze for half a second before tugging the sleeve back down. "Gift. Old. Hardly works anymore." But the way his throat tightened betrayed him. Emilia forced a smile, though suspicion churned inside her. She wanted to believe his story. She wanted to believe the man who knelt in a school nurse's office and carried takeout into her apartment. But Henry's words echoed in her mind. Men like you disappear. Men like me don't. That night, Amelia sat by her window watching streetlights blur through the glass. She traced her fingers along the chipped edge of her coffee mug, trying to steady herself. He had lied. About something. Maybe not everything, but enough. And yet, when she remembered his eyes, his voice breaking as he spoke about his wife, she couldn't reconcile the lie with the man she saw. She whispered into the quiet, as if asking the city itself, "Who are you, Adrian Leclerc?"
The rain poured steadily that Sunday afternoon, drumming against Amelia's windows like a relentless symphony. She had planned on spending the day grading preschool art projects and curling up with tea. But when her phone buzzed, it wasn't another teacher or Daniela. It was Adrian. The twins are climbing the walls. Rain day blues. Any chance you'd rescue us with some company? Amelia hesitated, staring at the message. Her heart told her yes. Her head whispered caution. But before doubt could root too deep, she typed back, "Bring them over. I'll supply cookies." An hour later, her tiny apartment was transformed into chaos again. Crayons scattered across the rug, toys piled in corners, the scent of chocolate chip cookies wafting through the air. Arya and Julian sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching pictures of superheroes and unicorns. Adrian sat on the couch, watching them, his long frame folded awkwardly into the small space. "You really didn't have to bake," he said, holding one of her cookies. Amelia shrugged, wiping flour from her cheek. "Bribery. Works on kids, sometimes adults." He laughed, a sound warmer, freer than she'd ever heard from him. "Fair enough." As the twins played, Amelia found herself beside him, both sipping tea from mismatched mugs. For a while they simply watched the kids, the silence comfortable. "They're good," she murmured. "They're everything," Adrian replied. His gaze softened as he watched Arya carefully draw a crown on Julian's superhero sketch. "Some days, I think I'm doing okay. Other days," he trailed off, eyes dimming. "Other days," she turned to him. His jaw flexed. "Other days, I wonder if I'm enough, if I can be both mother and father, if I'm failing them." Her chest tightened. She recognized that voice, the quiet fear of not being enough. She'd heard it in her mother's late-night sighs, in her own thoughts after heartbreak. "You're not failing them," she said firmly. "They're happy, loved, safe. That's everything." Adrian met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. Vulnerability, recognition, a tether pulling tighter. Later, when the cookies were devoured and the twins begged for a game, Adrian surprised her by sitting cross-legged on the floor, letting Julian crawl onto his back as though he were a horse. Arya squealed with laughter, cheering them on. Amelia laughed too, unable to stop. The sight of Adrian, so dignified, so careful in public, on all fours with a paper crown sliding down his head, was disarming. "You'll ruin your reputation," she teased. He glanced up at her, a mischievous grin breaking through. "Good. Never liked that reputation anyway." Something in his words struck her, a hidden truth wrapped in humor. When the twins finally collapsed into a pillow fort, Adrian and Amelia found themselves in the kitchen cleaning dishes. The small space forced them close, shoulders brushing as they moved around each other. At one point, Amelia reached for a glass at the same time he did. Their hands touched. Her breath caught. His lingered just a moment too long before pulling away. Silence thickened, broken only by the hum of rain outside. "You're easy to be around," Adrian said finally, his voice low. "I didn't think I'd find that again." Amelia's throat tightened. Neither did I. The words hung between them like a fragile thread. As evening fell, the twins begged for one last story before leaving. Adrian nodded toward Amelia. "Your pick." She chose a worn copy of The Velveteen Rabbit. She read aloud, her voice soft, filling the small living room with warmth. Arya nestled against her arm. Julian dozed against Adrian's chest. When Adrian reached the line, "Once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand," she faltered. She looked up. Adrian's eyes were already on her, steady and searching. For a moment, the whole world narrowed to that gaze. By the time Adrian gathered the twins and stood at her door, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. He hesitated, one hand on the frame. "Tonight, thank you," he said, "for letting us in." Her lips curved, though her heart pounded. "You're always welcome here." Something flickered in his eyes. Longing, fear, maybe both. But he only nodded and turned into the night, the twins drowsy in his arms. Amelia closed the door slowly, leaning against it. For the first time in years, her apartment didn't feel like just hers. It felt like it belonged to something bigger, something she wasn't sure she could survive losing.
The gala was dazzling in a way Amelia had only seen in movies. Crystal chandeliers glittered above the ballroom, casting light across marble floors and tables draped in silk. The scent of champagne and roses hung in the air. Daniela had dragged her there, insisting she needed a night out. "For once, let men look at you instead of paint-covered preschoolers," she joked. Amelia felt out of place in her borrowed navy dress, but when her eyes landed across the room, her breath caught. Adrian. He wasn't in flannel or rolled-up sleeves. He wasn't the weary single dad hauling boxes. He stood tall in a tailored suit that fit him like a second skin, his presence commanding as though the gala was his home. The twins weren't at his side, neither was the mask of modesty. And people flocked to him. Men clapped him on the back. Women lingered with admiring eyes. Waiters treated him with deference. Billionaire. The word struck Amelia's chest like ice. Before she could move, Henry Caldwell appeared at her elbow, smirking. Surprised? Her lips parted, but no words came. Henry leaned closer, his voice dripping venom. "That man you've been entertaining, he isn't who you think. Adrian Leclerc, heir to the Leclerc fortune, surgeon, investor, darling of the press, plays poor to see who's real. Cruel little game, isn't it?" Amelia's pulse hammered, her stomach twisted. She wanted to dismiss Henry, but the sight before her confirmed it. Adrian laughing with donors, a glass of champagne in hand, perfectly at ease. He lied. She didn't wait. She marched across the room, ignoring the eyes that followed her until she reached him. "Adrian." His smile faltered. For a moment, something vulnerable flickered in his gaze. Fear, maybe? Shame? "Adrian, how long?" Her voice trembled. "How long have you been lying to me?" Conversations around them quieted. The music swelled, but the ballroom seemed to shrink until it was just the two of them. Adrian set down his glass. "It wasn't a lie. Not about us, not about what I feel." Her throat tightened. "Not a lie. You let me believe you were struggling, raising twins on scraps, when all this," she gestured around the glittering room, "was yours all along. Do you know how humiliating that is?" He flinched. "I needed you to see me. Not the money, not the reputation, me." Her eyes burned. "And what about my choice? What about honesty? Did it ever occur to you that I deserve the truth?" Silence fell like a guillotine. Adrian stepped closer, desperation in his eyes. "Emilia, please. After Claire, after my wife, I didn't know how to start again. The only way I could trust someone was if they saw me stripped of all this. I never meant to hurt you." Her tears spilled, her voice breaking. "But you did! Because now I don't know if anything was real. The rain, the tea, the bedtime stories, were those Adrian the man or Adrian the performance?" He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. The rejection hit him like a blade.
The twins' laughter, the warmth of her apartment, her voice reading stories, it all shattered under the weight of that moment. Henry's smirk lingered in the background, but Adrian barely noticed. All he saw was Amelia's back as she turned and walked out, her shoulders stiff, her head held high, even as her heart broke. Later, Adrian stood by his penthouse window, city lights sprawled beneath him like stars he couldn't reach. He pressed his palm against the glass, but all he felt was the cold. In another part of the city, Amelia sat on her bed, dress pooled around her, makeup streaked. She clutched one of the napkins Arya had scribbled a unicorn on, her tears staining the paper. She whispered into the night, "Why wasn't I enough for the truth?" If you were in Amelia's shoes, would you forgive Adrian for hiding his wealth and identity, or would the betrayal be too deep to heal? Share your heart in the comments.
The storm had passed outside, but inside Adrian's pet house, chaos still raged. The twins were asleep in their rooms, but Adrian couldn't rest. He paced the polished hardwood floors, his suit jacket discarded, tie loosened, hair disheveled from running his hands through it too many times. The gala's echo still rang in his ears, Amelia's trembling voice, her eyes brimming with betrayal, the way she pulled her hand from his. He could perform surgery with steady precision, close deals worth millions without blinking. But one woman's broken trust had unraveled him completely. He sank onto the leather couch, staring at the framed photo of Claire and the twins. Claire's smile seemed to mock him now. "You'd hate me for this," he whispered. "Or maybe you'd tell me to fight for." His chest tightened. He had built his empire on control, but Amelia had shown him something wealth never could, the chance to feel ordinary, to be wanted for himself, and he'd shattered it. Still, he couldn't let her slip away without a fight. Across the city, Amelia curled on her bed, hair undone, the navy dress hanging like a reminder of humiliation. Daniela sat beside her, rubbing her shoulder. "You don't owe him forgiveness," Daniela said firmly. "Men like that, they think they can play games because they're rich. You deserve honesty." Amelia's throat ached. It wasn't just the lie, it was everything else. He'd let me believe in something safe, in him. Daniela frowned. "Then it wasn't safe, Em, it was a trick." But Amelia shook her head, tears spilling. "No, I saw him with his kids. I saw the fear in his eyes when Julian scraped his knee, the way he carried takeout into my apartment. That wasn't a trick." Daniela hesitated. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying," Amelia's voice cracked, "I don't know if I can trust him, but I can't stop caring either, and that scares me more than anything." Days passed like shadows. Amelia buried herself in work, but Adrian's absence clung to her like a ghost. Every laugh from her students reminded her of Julian. Every quiet pause reminded her of Arya's small hand in hers. Meanwhile, Adrian tried to distract himself with hospital shifts and board meetings, but nothing dulled the ache. His phone filled with unsent drafts. "I'm sorry, please let me explain." But he couldn't bring himself to send them. Not yet. One evening he stood outside Amelia's apartment, staring up at her light in the window. His heart pounded. He almost rang the bell. Almost. But fear stopped him. Fear that she'd shut the door forever. He whispered into the night, "I'll wait, as long as it takes." At school, Amelia bent down to tie a little girl's shoelaces when she heard a soft voice behind her. "Miss Amelia?" She turned. Arya stood there, clucking her unicorn, eyes wide and hopeful. Amelia's heart twisted. She knelt. "Hey, sweetheart." "Daddy misses you," Arya whispered. Tears stung Amelia's eyes. "I miss you too." Before she could say more, a teacher called Arya back to class. Amelia stood frozen, the weight of the little girl's words crashing over her. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, staring at the unicorn napkin Julian had left behind weeks ago. The choice gnawed at her. Pride screamed, "He lied! Protect yourself! Don't let him close again!" But her heart whispered, "He's more than his mistake, and so are you." Her hand shook as she picked up her phone. She typed a message, erased it, typed again. Finally, she left only 3 words. "We need to talk."
In his penthouse, Arya's phone buzzed. He froze when he saw her name. His breath caught as he read the message. Relief, fear, hope, all tangled in his chest. His reply was instant. Name the place, I'll be there. He set the phone down, exhaling shakily. For the first time since the gala, the crushing weight on his chest lifted, just a little, because now everything depended on her choice.
The little diner on the corner hadn't changed. Same squeaky booths, same faded menus, same smell of coffee and fries. It was the place where everything began, and where Adrian hoped everything could begin again. He sat in the corner booth, heart pounding harder than it ever had in an operating room. His suit was gone, replaced with jeans and a simple sweater. No armor, no performance, just Adrian. The bell over the door jingled. Amelia stepped in, her navy coat damp from drizzle, her eyes scanning until they found him. For a moment, neither moved. Then she walked toward him, every step measured, every breath visible in the air between them. She slid into the booth. Silence pressed in. Finally, Adrian spoke. "Thank you for coming." Amelia's voice was quiet but firm. "Talk." He didn't look away. He owed her that much. "My name is Adrian LeClaire. Yes, I'm wealthy. Yes, I'm a surgeon. But none of that mattered when I met you. All I wanted was to be seen as a man who loved his kids, who was trying to start again. I was terrified that if I told you the truth, you'd never believe anything between us was real." He swallowed hard. "But hiding it made me the liar I swore I'd never be. And for that, I'm sorry. You deserved honesty from the start." Amelia's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "Do you know what it felt like to stand in that room, surrounded by people who knew the truth, while I was the fool who didn't?" His chest ached. "I do. And if I could take that humiliation from you, I would. But I can only give you the truth now." Silence again. The clink of dishes, the hum of conversation around them. Then Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded napkin. He slid it across the table. She frowned, unfolding it. A unicorn, drawn in Arya's messy handwriting. Underneath, "Miss Amelia makes Daddy smile again." Her eyes blurred. "Amelia," Adrian whispered, voice thick. "I don't want to lose what we found. Not the laughter, not the nights with tea, not the way you make the twins believe the world is safe again, and not the way you make me believe it too." Her heart twisted. Pride and pain still battled within her, but beneath it all was something stronger. The memory of Adrian kneeling by his son, the sound of his laughter in her kitchen, and the warmth of belonging she hadn't felt in years. "Adrian," she whispered, her voice trembling, "you broke my trust. But you also broke the walls I swore I'd keep forever. And maybe that matters more." His breath hitched. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying—" She exhaled, tears spilling. "Don't lie to me again. Ever. If I stay, it has to be the truth. Always." Adrian's eyes glistened. He reached across the table, his hand hovering until she placed hers in his. "Always," he vowed. At that moment, the bell over the diner door jingled again. "Daddy!" Julian barreled in, Arya close behind, Daniela trailing with an exasperated smile. Arya spotted Amelia and squealed, running straight into her lap. "I knew you'd come back!" Amelia laughed through her tears, hugging the little girl tight. Adrian watched, his chest swelling with gratitude and awe.
Julian clambered onto the booth beside him. "Are we a family now?" he asked bluntly. Adrian and Amelia shared a look, laughter breaking through the heaviness. "Yes," Adrian said softly, wrapping an arm around both twins and Amelia. "We're a family now." That night, as they left the diner together, the drizzle turned into a gentle mist. Adrian slipped his hand into Amelia's, and she didn't let go. For the first time since Claire's passing, his world didn't feel broken. It felt whole. And for the first time since her father's betrayal, Amelia wasn't waiting for someone to leave. She was ready to stay. Unexpected love had found them both, through lies, through heartbreak, through fear, and now it was theirs to keep. Do you believe true love can survive a devastating lie if the heart behind it is genuine? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on Adrian and Amelia's journey.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you loved this story, you will definitely love the next one. It's more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So go ahead and watch it now. Click on the image on your screen right away to watch the next one. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It helps and encourages us to share the best human interest stories you'd love.